The second tree is the furze, which with its golden flowers and prickles typifies this young sun at the spring equinox, the time when furze's fires are lighted on the hills. The effect of burning away the old prickles is to make tender new ones sprout on the stalk, which sheep eat greedily, and to encourage the growth of grass. The furze but ill-behaved until he is subdued. The religious importance of furze, or gorse, which in Welsh folklore is good against witches, is enhanced by its flowers being frequented by the first bees of the year, and the ivies are by the last. The name Niona, a goddess worshipped by the Gauls in ash groves, is a compound of On and Nion, which supplies the date of her festival, namely the spring equinox at the close of the ash month. U for Ura. The third tree is the healthier sacred... Nope. The third tree is the heather, sacred to the Roman and Sicilian love goddess Venus Erycina, and in Egypt and Phoenicia to Isis, whose brother Osiris was immured in a heather tree at Byblos, where she went to seek him. The Isis legend quoted by Plutarch is late and artificial, but hints at child sacrifice in honor of Osiris. The 18th century antiquary Winslow took Dean Swift to Low Crew to collect local legends of the Irish triple goddess. Among those collected was one of the death of the Garb Og, an ancient ageless giantess whose car was drawn by elks, whose diet was venison milk and eagle's breasts, and who hunted the mountain deer with a pack of 70 hounds with bird names. She gathered stones to heap herself a triple cairn and set up her chair in a womb of the hills at the season of heather bloom, and then expired. The Gallic heather goddess Euroka, is attested by inscriptions in Roman Switzerland. Her name is halfway between Ura and the Greek word for heather, iris. The heather is the midsummer tree, red and passionate, and is associated with mountains and bees. The goddess is herself a queen bee, about whom male drones swarm in midsummer, and as Sibyl is often so pictured, the ecstatic self-castration of her priest was a type of the emasculation of the drone by the queen bee in the nuptial act. Venus fatally accorded Anchises on a mountain to the hum of bees. But white heather is lucky, being a protection against acts of passion. The Sicilian Mount Eryx is famous for the visit of Boots, the bee master, son of the north wind, who was given a hero shrine there by the nymphs of the goddess Erycina. The reference in Guion's Cagadu to the heather comforting the battered poplars is to heather ale, a favorite restorative in Wales. The ancient popularity of lindens or lime trees among love poets of Germany and northern France suggests that they became a substitute in flat regions for mountain heather. Lindens flower from mid-May to mid-August. They do not rank as sacred trees in Britain, where only the small-leaved varieties seem to be indigenous. However, in Thessaly, Chiron, the centaur's goddess mother associated with erotic Wernick, was called Philura linden. E for Edda. The fourth tree, the tree of the autumn equinox and of old age, is the shifting-leaf white poplar or aspen, the shield maker's tree. According to Pausanias, it was first introduced into Greece from Epirus by Hercules, and the Latin legend is that he bound his head in triumph with poplar after killing the giant Cacus, the evil one, in his den on the Aventine Hill at Rome. The side of the leaves next to his brow were whitened by the radiant heat he gave out. Presumably, the myth accounts for the difference in leaf and ritual used between the aspen and the black poplar, which was a funeral tree sacred to Mother Earth in pre-Hellenic Greece. There is a reference in the Casina of Plautus. The Casina of Plautus to the divinatory use of black poplar and silver fir, the fir apparently standing for hope, the poplar for loss of hope. Somewhat as in Pembrokeshire, a girl gives a love... Somewhat as in Pembrokeshire, a girl gives a lover either a piece of birch as a sign of encouragement. You may begin, or a piece of hazel called Colin. Be wise and desist. Hercules conquered death, and in ancient Ireland, the fay, or measuring rod used by coffin makers on corpses, was of aspen, presumably as a reminder to the souls of the dead that this was not the end. Golden headdresses of aspen leaves are found in Mesopotamian burials of 3000 BC. I'll do one more. Yeah. I for Idaho. It's not Idaho, though. It's Idaho. The fifth tree is the yew, the death tree in all European countries, sacred to Hecate in Greece and Italy. At Rome, when black bulls were sacrificed to Hecate so that the ghost would lap their gushing blood, they were wreathed with yew. The yew is mentioned by Pausanias as the tree beside the Epaminondas found the bronze urn on Mount Ithome containing on a tin scroll the secret mysteries of the Greek goddess. On the other side of the urn appropriately grew a myrtle, which, as will appear in chapter 13, was the Greek equivalent of the elder, the death consonant R. That the scroll was made of tin is interesting, for the ancient Greeks imported their tin from Spain and Britain. In Ireland, the yew was the coffin of the vine. The wine barrels were made of yew staves. In the Irish romance of Naos and Deirdre, yew stakes were driven through the corpses of these lovers to keep them apart, but the stakes sprouted and became trees whose tops eventually embraced over Armagh Cathedral. In Brittany, it is said that churchyard yews will spread a root to the mouth of each corpse. Yew makes the best bows, as the Romans learned from the Greeks, and the deadliness of the tree is thereby enhanced. It is likely that the Latin taxus yew is connected with toxon, Greek for bow, and with toxicon, Greek for the poison with which arrows were smeared. The ancient Irish are said to have used a compound of yewberry, hellebore, and devil's bit for poisoning their weapons. John Evelyn, in his Silva, 1662, points out that the yew does not deserve its reputation for poisonousness. Whatever Pliny reports concerning its shade, or the story of the air about Theseus, the fate of Catavolcus mentioned by Caesar, and the ill report which the fruit has vulgarly obtained in France, Spain, and Arcadia. Cattle and horses nibble the leaves without ill effect, he says, but later he suggests that the true taxus is indeed mortiferous. Its use in the English witch cult is recalled in Macbeth, where Hecate's cauldron contained slips of yew slivered in the moon's eclipse. Shakespeare elsewhere calls it the doubtful fatal yew and makes Hamlet's uncle poison the king by... silvered in the moon's eclipse. Shakespeare elsewhere calls it the double fatal yew and makes Hamlet's uncle poison the king by pouring its juice, hebenon, into his ear. It shares with the oak the reputation of taking longer than any other tree to come to maturity, but is longer lived even than the oak. When seasoned and polished, its wood has an extraordinary power of resisting corruption. One of the 5 magical trees of Ireland was a yew. This was the tree of Ross, described as a firm, straight deity. The Irish yew differed from the British in being cone-shaped, with branches growing straight up, not horizontally. The renown of Banba was the death aspect of the Irish triple goddess, the spell of knowledge, and the king's wheel, that is to say, the death letter that makes the wheel of existence come full circle. As a reminder of his destiny, every Irish king wore a brooch in the form of a wheel, which was entailed on his successor. I place the station of the yew on the last day of the year, the eve of the winter solstice. Elm, the silver fir of birch, and Iddo, the yew of death, are sisters. They stand next to each other in the circle of the year, and their foliage is almost identical. Fir is to yew as silver is to lead. The medieval alchemists, following ancient tradition, reckoned silver to the moon as presiding over birth, and lead to Saturn as presiding over death, and extracted both metals from the same mixed ore. Hold on. Let's see. Yeah, I'm going to stop right after this. No, I'm going to stop right there. That'll work for today.